The venture is looking for social entrepreneurs eager to transform the world, represent Malaysia to pitch for a share of $1 million in funding and receive world-class mentorship. Register at theventure.com. Application ends 15th November 2016.
This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Good morning, you're listening to Raise Your Game, and I'm Angeline Tay, and today we have Jerome Brown from Human Inc., and they're the partners of Leadronomics and our usual Leadronomics Monday. And today we'll be exploring the topic of design thinking and what it means to fall in love with your problems instead of being overly focused on finding solutions. And I think specifically we're talking about design thinking and career development. So, first of all, why is design thinking important for your career development?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And, design thinking is the hottest thing right now in business. And it's usually talked about in terms of growing your product portfolio and things like that. But usually, design thinking at its heart is about empathy. And empathy is something that you can use to connect with your purpose. And that can actually be the fuel to drive you forward in your organization. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today.
Okay, so let's go back to the basics. Like, for those who are not aware of design thinking, what is design thinking?
So design thinking is, it's kind of three different things. And I won't go into detail about them, but it's basically a process, a practice, and a mindset.
Process, practice, mindset.
Yes, and specifically, it's an approach to problem solving that's not so focused on, as you said, kind of falling in love with the solution, but falling in love with the problem, which is not kind of heard of a lot of times. So, I guess design thinking is really the best way to explain it is through an example. So let's say I asked you to make a better pair of scissors, right? And you might think of, what's the next two-bladed, two-handled type of thing, right? But really, as a design thinker, you're actually thinking about what is the real problem. You're actually spending time finding the problem. So it's kind of problem finding. So actually, you would think about what's the best way to cut paper, because that's the point of scissors. So you might then kind of, the solution set actually opens up like huge, like a crocodile's mouth. So you go wide before you go deep like a bird's beak. That's what we say in design thinking. So taking that back to career development, design thinking can help you to really, a lot of times in problem solving in general, you feel stuck. And when you're able to go wide like a crocodile's mouth, you can become unstuck and kind of focus in on what you really want to be doing.
Okay, so what is usually the problem then when it comes to career development?
That's a good question, right? I think if I solved that, we both wouldn't be sitting here, I guess, now, right? I think the main problem in problem solving, if related to career development too, is we get stuck in our similar kind of pathways of using the same approach. We got to have this degree. We need to have, we have to do this project. We have a definition of success that's not our own. So really, how can we have a definition of success that's wider and based on our own purpose? That can happen in many stages of your career where you don't have a sense of your purpose. And again, how can we come back to that sense of purpose?
Mm-hmm. Now, at what point in a leader's career is design thinking most useful?
It's actually useful at many parts, and I want to come back to the essential root of design thinking, which is empathy. Mm-hmm. And design thinking has the actual practice is three parts: understand, ideas, and action. And each of those have different practices within them. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go deep on each of those. I want to make this very useful and practical for your listeners and go deep on the understand part, which is the empathy. And I want to give you an example of how practical, empathy has been used in business contexts, and we can take it from there. That sound all right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, now up next we'll be talking about, some general examples, general examples on finding your purpose and advancing your career, because I think that's the biggest problem when we're working and we're sort of figuring out our careers. That's up next. And in the studio, we have Jerome Brown. He's a design lead at Human Inc., and this is Raise Your Game on BFM 89.9.
Build financial mountains. BFM 89.9.
Good morning. You're still listening to Raise Your Game. I'm Angeline Tay, and with us today is Jerome Brown. He's the design lead at Human Inc. This is part of the Leadronomics the Science of Building Leaders series. And today we're talking about design thinking and how it can help in your career development. And Jerome, just now you shared about how design thinking is about empathy and falling in love with the problem. And you gave the example of how, creating a better pair of scissors is to find better ways of cutting a paper. Now, when it comes to career development, as you mentioned earlier, it's about our sense of purpose. So could you give us more examples that you can give to our listeners and how a leader can use design thinking to clarify their purpose and advance their career?
Definitely. Thank you for having me back here. So I want to give two examples. One, a general example of how a leader used design thinking to kind of move the ball forward, and one specific example, kind of deep into the how-to. So we were working with a HR leader at a local business here, and they were having an issue with they were just advanced in their position from a manager to an HR director, and they were basically given all this new responsibility, and they found themselves in this kind of mode of being reactive versus responsive, and that's the problem they came to us with. So we said to her, okay, you can actually break down this you can become more responsive by actually kind of using this empathetic communication with your boss. And basically the empathetic communication is from a school of knowledge called nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg, right? And it's in three parts. It's basically an observation, a feeling, and a need. Marshall says that every feeling that comes up in anyone is a tragic expression of an unmet need. So you can go online, Google MVC. There's a list of feelings that he has and a list of needs. So basically, we realized that there was a lack of authenticity. There was a need for authenticity between the boss and the HR director, because and what let us know that was this feeling of unease that was there for this HR director. And so when this HR director and her boss were having a conversation, usually she was feeling uneasy and frustrated because she needed authenticity. That kind of stem I gave you there, that's I gave you an observation, a feeling, and a need. And that is the kernel of the understand part of design thinking.
And when you're talking about because there's three steps to design thinking, which is understand, ideas, and action.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So another example, and I'll be honest up here, and I'll talk about something I've used in my own career. I've used this process to get out of a position where I was feeling stuck. So just how I came to KL was I was working at a local health education nonprofit in India, actually, finishing my master's. This happened about 2 months ago, so this is really fresh. And it's interesting because I was using this technique of there was an observation, there was a feeling, then there was a need there. And I was actually using that to journal. Every day I would, kind of do what was the high, what was the low of the day. And I was noticing that there was a need for connection in my workplace. And I identified, actually before I started working, I identified three things I needed in a workplace: meaning, connection, and honesty. The meaning part and the honesty part was happening, and I measured myself over 21 days and found that the connection was not there. And I was really sad about it, actually. And even though I measured that data over 21 days and realized connection wasn't there, it wasn't until I had a conversation, and I was talking to my mom about this over the 21 days. And we usually don't have these kind of deeper emotional kind of conversations, but she told me, she said, "Axel, you seem stagnant in your position." And it just shocked me that she said that. And if I wasn't using this MVC kind of technique on myself, it wouldn't have led to action, and the action was to leave the job.
But you were only there for 21 days. It's still fairly early.
Good point. I tracked myself for 21 days, and then I stayed on another 2 months, which is what we do a lot of times. I'm one of those people who stay in a relationship too long, and should have left. So I stayed there another 2 months, and I kept kind of telling my mom about this, just anecdotally, and then so it's interesting. Having the data of the feelings is not enough. You also need your own community. You need to be open and vulnerable enough to share this with your community, that actually leads to action.
Okay, and you mentioned for you it's a three thing: meeting, honesty, and connection.
Yes.
Is that the main three values that people are looking for in their jobs, or do you have more examples?
Sure, and I know we have time here. So the meaning, connection, and honesty are a part of. If you again look at the MVC, which is a technique in design thinking, those are the basic needs that all humans have. You know, in a workplace, empirically, research has been done on what are things to keep an employee happy. You can look at Jennifer Archer at Stanford. She's done some research on this, and if you can design for a sense of meaning, a perceived sense of meaning, a perceived sense of happiness, and a perceived sense of honesty for your employees, and it actually works for your customers too, you can generate a sense of happiness for your customers and employees.
Okay. I was just wondering, like, listeners on the road, if you have any, I guess you call this values, I guess?
Yes.
Yeah. What values are you looking for in terms of career? If you can share with us, you can tweet us at BFM Radio. And I'm just trying to look at myself and working at a radio, what my values are. I think it's the same thing. It's I think communication, connection, because that's what's important. And what's the third one?
For me, it was honesty.
Honesty.
And fun, too, right? We got to have fun. That's what we don't say that one enough. But yeah, I definitely challenge your listeners to definitely look at their values. And again, a practical way to do it is looking at the MVC feelings and needs list, and also design thinking in terms of how to take action on those ideas that you generate from understanding yourself.
Okay, and what happens if you're into a new job, like yourself? I think you just got a new job. You're probably excited. You probably meet all the three values in the first year. And what if you reach that point of plateau, second year, third year on? What should they do?
That's a good point. I've been in this field for the last 16 years, and I've been in this region for the last 2 years. And as you said, I'm pretty new in KL. So I've been on those points where you've kind of hit a wall. And a really interesting thing to do when you first start a new job is write yourself a letter to yourself when that moment of need. What do you tell yourself? Come back, write a letter to yourself, reminding yourself of those values that you had. And that's, an action that you can take that stems from helping you to remind, because you kind of want to create an environment that'll help you remember, design an environment that, generates this happiness. And one way to do that is to kind of have, along the way, you kind of have like a video game or something. You kind of have a power-up button, and that letter can do that for you.
It's like a reminder. Okay, so coming back to design thinking and the 3 steps, which is understand ideas and action by using the NVC, which is observation, feelings, and need. With that, it can help in your career development. Now, are there any other benefits from design thinking?
I love that one because it's it's not only an approach for your career, but it's a way to live your life. And one example is we had a participant from a workshop. We love to keep in touch with our participants, and they love to keep in touch with us afterwards. And one of them hit me up, and he was like, "Hey, can I get a coffee? I really wanted to share something with you." And I was like, "Okay." Maybe he was wanting like another tip or something, right? And we were talking about the weather or whatever, and then he just lays it on me. He's like, "Man, this learning design thinking and MVC saved my marriage." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "Tell me more." And he just basically said that, I'd never really seen my wife as, I never seen her past kind of this of a side, right? I never have been able to connect to those needs. And we actually did an exercise where we kind of together outline our personal values, and we were able to kind of see each other in a different light. So whenever you're able to kind of connect to the needs of someone, you're able to humanize them. And again, sometimes in marriage, it takes, you tend to lose that sense of humanness between each other. So, yeah.
Okay, I was just Googling down the needs inventory from the cnvc.org.
Yes.
And so I guess for listeners out there, I think you can sort of identify which one is yours. There's connection, honesty, physical well-being, autonomy, and meaning. And there's a lot of sub-values under this, which is like connection involves acceptance, affection, appreciation, belonging, communication, closeness, community. Honesty comes with authenticity, integrity, presence. Meaning comes with awareness, celebration of life, challenge, clarity. Autonomy comes with choice, freedom, independence, and obviously physical well-being has food, air, rest, sleep, safety, shelter. And yeah, I think I was trying to understand myself as well. Autonomy is a big one, meaning, and also connection. Yeah. So do look out for your values and then trying to identify which one is closer to your heart so you can proceed, progress further with your career development. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I've been speaking to Jerome Brown. He is the design lead at humaninc.com, and you've been listening to Raise Your Game. I'm Angeline Tay, BFM 89.9.
Thank you for listening to this podcast.